we want to show you, I'm very, very excited being here and show you how we can make together Salesforce and Google Cloud a customer engagement platform. First of all, just to move a little bit, can I ask you to just raise your hands? Who of you are in the business area? Who of you make the business decisions in your companies? OK, cool. Who of you are developers, the guys that actually really make the decisions? Cool. Who of you do you use Salesforce in your company? Hey,
Wow.
that's a very good. And who of you is right now doing or planning on do some kind of IoT project?
Wow.
Amazing. This is your session, actually. This is your session. You're in the right place. What I want you guys to understand here today are three main things. One is that we are going to help you bring value from the data that you're getting from IoT, which is very, very important. The second one is that we are bringing together our IoT, blending our IoT knowledge on Google Cloud on how to secure the communication, how to scale, how to get insights from that data with the 360 view of the customer that Salesforce can give you. And the last one is that we are here for you. We have done it before, and we can help you do it. This is real. So now, this wouldn't be a real IoT session if I would not start with a huge number. It has to be like that. 8.4 billion of devices, Gartner says, were connected to the internet, IoT devices were in 2017. It's important, the growth that we had, the 36% growth between 2016 and 2017 is incredible. And this number of devices that are going up is just getting faster and faster, as you know. 20 billion by 2020, Gartner says that we're going to have. Now, these devices, what they're doing is generating data. And we are generating data faster and faster and faster. Just a single engine from a plane has more than 5,000 sensors. It's generating 10 gigabytes of data per second. If we add all of that for a whole day, and I don't know you, but I won't go on a plane that has only one engine, that is more information on a single plane flying 12 hours than the amount of data that we got on social media in 2016. The machines are generating an amazing amount of data. So what? That's the main thing. When a customer calls me in and say, I want to connect my devices, IoT is pretty cool, I say, why? And this is the main question. This is, how do I use IoT to make it useful for the business? How can I get value from that data? This is what all of us should be here. And this is the important thing. Every single time I visit one of my customers, I tell them why. And if they can answer and they have a good value for that, then I go ahead. I just realized that I haven't introduced myself. My name is Roberto Barbero. As you have heard, I'm Spanish. So I'm just realizing that if you take a Spaniard to give a speech in less than 50 minutes, you get someone that speaks very, very fast. So stop me there, raise your hand. My job in Google, I'm an IoT specialist covering Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And my job is not to sell IoT, which is great, is to make my customers get the best solution related to IoT. So this is what I do. This is what I do. I try to make my customers understand that it's not about connecting devices. Connecting devices and IoT, the announcement that we heard from Injon this morning, is just a way to get information in the cloud. What I do with that is what really matters. So I have the data. I start doing things. And many of my customers tell me, well, we have heard about IoT for a few years now, and we are already there. We have invested in connecting my products, connecting my car, connecting my machines on my manufacturing plant. I am connecting my lights. And in the end, what we have, or what they have, is silos, solutions that are siloed on IoT. But IoT is evolving. my customers, the ones that are more advanced, or hopefully, if you start working with us today, I'm going to tell you, you have to have a different idea, a different strategy on IoT. You need to find an end-to-end solution, thinking what I want to do, and starting from the device until the end, go on a single platform that is going to give you the tools and the solutions to get the value and the intelligence from that data. So very quickly, I'm going to show you what we usually do. And it's very important because there are 2-3 points here that you will see what I'm talking about. First, we have to start with the business case. We have to start with why do I need that data? Okay? Then we have the devices that we need to connect in a secure way. Then we have the cloud solution. Well, it's going to give you the scalability. It's going to give you the security. It's going to give you the tools to make that happen. Then your company probably is going to build an application on top of that, and you're going to connect that to CRM, probably Salesforce, ERP, and other solutions. Then comes what is important for you, which is what information is going to get that is going to transform your business. And finally, you're going to have a product that was static, and now is a 24/7 product. It's a product that is alive, and you have to be support to your customers. We have begun here with the business case, probably to do something with your customers. We are going in the middle with the business system connecting to a CRM, which is about your customers, and we end giving support to your customers. You see the trend here. IoT and your customer, and as Mark Benioff, the CEO of Salesforce, says, behind every device there is a customer, is what you should have in mind when you look for one of these solutions. So, how do we do it at Google? We have 3 legs here. We have the technology, and this is what Next is all about. You have heard what is, and it's not only about IoT Core. It's about all the different solutions that we have around it. Then we have the expertise to do that. We have an amazing team of people that can help you do that. And then, last but not least, we have our amazing partners. And I'm excited to be here with Salesforce today because this is one of the best partnerships that we have on IoT. I touched something over here. This is just to show you that this is live. Exactly. There we go. Now, finally, if we see from the first leg, the technology, IoT Core is the starting point. It's just the gateway. It's just the way that we bring data in a secure way and a scalable way and managing the devices into the cloud. But then you have all of the rest of the solutions, as we will see later in the demo, that can make that happen and give you that value that we are looking for. And on the third leg, we have our partners. And to see what Salesforce can bring us to this solution, I'm very pleased to introduce you to Lisa D'Alessandro, Senior Director, IoT and Platform Strategy Partnerships from Salesforce. Give her an applause.
Thank you. So this is the way, yes, there we go. So what can you do with Salesforce IoT? So I'd like to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we are on the brink of a technological revolution that will fundamentally alter the way that we live and work and interact with one another. So the 4th industrial revolution, this is the revolution I'm talking about. But let's think back to previous industrial revolutions. For example, in the 1700s, there was steam. In the 1800s, there was electricity. In the 1900s, there was computing, what you're all doing now, looking at your phones instead of listening to me. That's OK. But now we're on the brink of this 4th industrial revolution. And what does that mean? What kind of technologies does that introduce, right? So let's think about how previously it was very linear in terms of how we move forward. But now it's exponential, right? And so with AI, with machine learning, with robotics, with 3D printing, these are all things that are really contributing to the 4th industrial revolution. And you need to think about how are you going to adopt these technologies in order to move forward, to move your business forward. And one of these technologies is IoT. So let's talk a little bit about IoT. So as Roberto mentioned, your customers are more connected than ever. Behind every customer, there is a device. Behind every device, there is a customer. And so these are devices that are always on. They're very smart. They are powered by AI. And they transact in real time. And you need to be able to transact in real time as well with your customers. And there's a gap, right? So there's a gap right now between what customers expect and how we do customer service nowadays. And what you guys need to figure out is how do you bridge that gap? And one of the ways that you can bridge that gap is with IoT. Because 80% of B2B customers expect that you transact with them in real time, right? So are you doing that right now? Have you thought about how are you going to harness the power of the fourth industrial revolution? How are you going to harness AI and IoT to drive your business forward? So Salesforce IoT can help you unlock the potential of your connected products, right? So you can get IoT data from your devices to help you and your customers exceed their expectations. So we've got connected things, right? And we hook that up to the Google Cloud IoT platform. They take that data, they do some transformation, they may do some other things with it in terms of the other products and services that they have, and they send that to Salesforce IoT. What does Salesforce IoT do with it? Takes that device data and it enriches it with all the rich contextual data that you already have in Salesforce, because many of you said you're Salesforce customers. So you can leverage your current investment in Salesforce, add on IoT, and voila, you can trigger some sort of an action, a customer engagement in Salesforce. So what might that look like? So for example, let's talk about my smartwatch here, right? So when I look at my smartwatch, I know how many miles I've gone today, how many miles I want to go, right? How many more I have to go, and whether or not I'm winning the competition with my neighbor in terms of doing more miles than he or she. But I can tell you right now, if my watch isn't giving me the information that I need, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to one of my competitors. I'm going to get their watch. And that's what you need to think about. If you're not adopting an IoT strategy that works, your competitors are going to take your business. So what can Salesforce IoT do? We can build amazing customer experiences, right? So for example, low-code, no-code declarative platform, which basically means that you can enact an IoT strategy in a matter of days, a matter of weeks, not months or years. This is immediate, right? As a business user, you can do this. Another thing is that we've integrated our IoT with the rest of our CRM platform. So you can enrich your IoT with all of the data from Service Cloud and Sales Cloud and any of the other information that you have in CRM. And finally, proactive customer engagement. I mean, that's what we're really talking about, right? We don't want to be reactive nowadays. We don't want to think, oh, I wonder what my customer needs. We want to proactively engage with them through this IoT platform. So let's talk a little bit about how we work and how we complement the Google Cloud Platform. So basically, as we said before, we get the device from these things, the data from these things, and we put it into the Google Cloud Platform, and then we send it to Salesforce IoT. And what we do there is we create a profile, and that profile is IoT data as well as contextual data that we get from Salesforce, right? And then we create what we call an orchestration, which is basically a bunch of business rules that we apply to these profiles, and we trigger, again, some sort of proactive customer engagement. That could be in Sales Cloud, or Service Cloud, or Marketing Cloud. And one of the other things that you need to consider is what other data might you need? What other data might you want to pull in? So you might want to pull in third-party data, for example, weather data. You might want to pull in Google Maps data. And just to give a quick example of how this might work, let's say it's a very warm day and you have a Coca-Cola cooler in your office and you want to get to your office and get a nice cold Coke out, but you know since it's really warm out, there's probably not going to be a lot of Coke left in there when you get there. Well, Coca-Cola also knows that it's a warm day out because they have an IoT platform, and they're saying, oh, okay, you know what? We've got our third-party data from the weather service. We know it's going to be really warm out, okay? And we can look inside of Salesforce, and we can see where our coolers are, and we can see that we have a field service guy who can actually go out and actually dispatch some more Coke proactively to that location so that when you get to the office, you can have your nice cold Coke. That's an example kind of how IoT can work. So hopefully, if you have any other questions around Salesforce IoT, you'll stick around. You can ask us afterwards. I'd now like to introduce my colleague, Aubrey Wing, who's actually going to talk about and provide a demo on how this is really going to work as well with the refrigerator. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. We could go ahead and switch over to the demo screen, which is, of course, it's a demo. The computer went to sleep, so Roberto, I'm going to have to ask you to log back in.
Oh,
While we're doing that, what I wanted to do was just give you a high-level overview of the use case that we're going to see in the demo. And we're going to see the demo in two parts. The first half is going to be Google. The second half is going to be Salesforce, and really watching the two pieces work together. But the key thing that you're hearing in this session today is that you want to think about your use case. You want to go ahead and make sure that you're driving business value. So ultimately, what we're going to take a look at is how you can apply IoT to answer some really exciting business questions. And so what I wanted to do is start by introducing our use case, and then we'll go into the different pieces here. Oh. All right, it is a demo. You guys you can see that this is in fact live. All right. So our use case here is based upon logistics. It's a pharmaceutical use case where really the underlying driver is to go ahead and ensure product quality. And product quality comes across three primary dimensions. First and foremost, I want to make sure I have the right level of stock in the places that it's needed the most. So think of this as, do I have the right stock level in New York, or London, or San Francisco? The second aspect of this are the assets that I own to make sure that the product is within spec. So think of this as all of the refrigerated boxcars or all the airplanes that we use to make sure that we're moving product from place to place. And the third is especially in high-value products or anything that has a determined spec, that we want to go ahead and say that we're keeping that as it should be. So in this case, we're monitoring environmentals, the right temperature, the right humidity, the right pressure, whatever it may be. So put it simply, is my product at the right place? Is it the right quality? Am I keeping track of cold chain custody? Right? Bunch of different use cases all driving towards a singular business experience. Now, historically, what has happened is that's three separate logic sets. You'll have to join them and then test them. So that's months and months and months. And with Google and Salesforce, we can go ahead and get something like that working in the matter of weeks, not months. And in fact, the business analysts can go ahead and build that. So just to highlight real quick, what we're looking at is Salesforce IoT here, but then we're going to work backwards and see how these two work together. So I mentioned earlier, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you see a warning around geolocation or geoboundary. The second we're going to see here is our evaluation of the equipment. Is in fact the equipment, is the door jammed? Is it operating? Is it pulling high voltage? And the last is actually temperature. And to represent this wouldn't be an IoT demo if we didn't in fact have hardware here. So you can see this run live. We have a refrigerator representing the cold chain. We have a sensor pack in here that's going to give us live readings. And so to best highlight that, I'm actually going to turn the stage back to Roberto, who will take you through the Google side.
Thank you. Can we just go back for a second to the slides? Because I would like to show you what is the architecture that we are seeing here. So we have, in fact, being an IoT demo, as Aubrey said, our fridge. Inside, there is, let me show you, we have our sensors running here, happily, as you can see. It's blinking, it's live. I have temperature, humidity, pressure. I have many, many, many sensors embedded here on this fridge to just make sure that the chain is working correctly. This Raspberry, these sensors are sending actually using the Wi-Fi, fingers crossed, the data to the cloud. Of course, we have at the very front IoT Core. IoT Core is giving me the security, is giving me the device management, is giving me the scalability to bring this data into the cloud. IoT Core is glued to PubSub. PubSub is our queuing system. It's kind of like the way that I can get information and make sure that this telemetry data is not lost if I have suddenly a burst of information coming in. And then PubSub is also at the same time the way that I can plug in the different pieces of the solution that we give you a Google Cloud Platform. If I go southbound, for example, we have data flow. Probably I will have different sensors from the truck that is transporting these vaccines. And I have information about what it is from the GPS, and I have information from the temperature and so on. I have to make sure that all that information is put together in real time. And this is what data flow is gonna help you to do. In real time, you can transform the data. You can massage that data to make sure it's in the format and complement that data to make sure that you have everything that you need. And then I'm going to store that data somewhere. Here in this example, we're using BigQuery. You heard a lot about BigQuery right now, our data warehouse solution. But depending on your use case, we can suggest which is the best storage solution for you. From there, what I am doing is just gathering this data so I can show you in real time how it is showing. If I go northbound, I have Cloud Functions, which is just a small piece of code that is actually triggered by something, in this case, the telemetry that comes from the sensors, and that is going to make the solution and inject that data into Salesforce. And Aubrey will show you a bit more about that. So let me just go back to the demo, now that you have seen the main architecture, just to make sure that you see that this is actually in real time. This is all the information that is coming in. And for those of you that would like to see a bit more under the hood, what this is about, this is the Google Cloud Platform console. And I have here, we said IoT Core is the first step. IoT Core, I have different registries here. I have the registry, which is just how I group the devices. And as you will see, this registry has some devices. In this case, I have 3 fridges here. I have the one that is in San Francisco that is communicating. And I can see all the telemetry data when it happens. If I dig down a little bit, I can show you, for example, how I connect to IoT Core. I talked about security. A device should not have, it's not a person, it shouldn't have a username and a password. For us, a device will have its own private key that is only known by the device, and it will use that private key to sign tokens to talk with us. IoT Core will then check the public key just matches the token that the device has sent to us. So I'm sure that the device is exactly who it says it is. And from now on, that information, the telemetry data, is coming encrypted into IoT Core. The next step from IoT Core is PubSub. That is just a bit boring. I can show you here that this registry is sending me telemetry data to this PubSub topic, this queuing system. And if you remember, the next step is data flow, where I am doing this real-time transformation of the data. I have one here that is doing something very, very simple for the demo purposes of this. It's just reading the telemetry data that comes from PubSub. The Raspberry is actually sending the data in JSON format, and I want the data to be injected in BigQuery. So I am transforming that into a BigQuery format and then injecting it into BigQuery. And the last step is store that data. So here I have my data store in BigQuery with all the data from the fridge. And I'm going to actually just query the table so you see that this is coming live. So I want to see everything from this data set, and I'm going to order it by the timestamp. For those of you that use Salesforce __C, you know where this is coming from. Descending. I run the query, and you will see that at 2059 UTC, I am receiving telemetry data that actually 22.63 corresponds to the live data that I'm getting for there. So this is if you remember, this is the southbound. I am getting this data, and I am going to analyze that data, and I can do something meaningful with it. The last piece, if you remember, if I go northbound, I have a cloud function that is being triggered every single time, so every 3 seconds when the Raspberry is sending me data, every 3 seconds, I have this function that is kicking in, and I can show you that what it's doing is actually connecting to Salesforce. Everything is finishing with a status OK. So Aubrey, if you want to show us what happens after this.
Absolutely. you, Roberto. And I think that the best thing to kind of think about from the next step is that as the northbound lane starts sending data, this is our bidirectional ability to communicate back and forth with GCP. And you're seeing the information here directly from our fridge and our Raspberry Pi. I gave you a quick view just a minute ago on what it looks like in terms of Salesforce. And again, in Salesforce, our mission is to make IoT really accessible. We're taking, in this case, a state machine, which can be a very, very powerful and sophisticated thing that we can offer to the business users to make it accessible and solve real-world business problems. So I mentioned earlier the different states as we go through from normal to warning across the different use cases, all the way to fault. What happens at that point is that we're able to take action. So you think about Google as anomaly detection. A lot of data, the ability to go ahead and manage security, to go ahead and manage data moving back and forth, provide data services. What Salesforce will allow you to do is take the anomaly detection and turn that into response. So the response is the last mile where we have that customer behind the scenes. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to reach over and change one of the parameters. You'll see it change on both the Google as well as the Salesforce side. So if we go ahead and take a look at the hardware real quick. All right, for the folks in the front row here, but certainly we can go ahead and show you later on. I'm going to increase one of the environmentals, the temperature, the humidity. I'm going to be very fancy here and just to do this manually. Hold on a second. We'll keep working on this. And what you're going to see as soon as it gets to reading is that we're going to go ahead and change states. Oh, there it is. Okay. So we now have a temperature warning. Keep going.
Keep going, keep going.
I feel like I'm blowing up balloon animals at a birthday party. All right. I think that'll do it. And the reason why we do this, when we introduce states, is that with IoT, you're going to get a continuous flow of data where you do not want to necessarily respond to the first event. There we go. All right. We have our case. We don't necessarily want to respond to the first event. So let's say, for example, my business logic was around stimulus response, which is a really common way to look at this. I get a reading, I open a case, I get a reading, I actually send, let's say, a field dispatch. But I'm getting a reading at the rate of once per second. So I'm going to get 60 cases or 60 dispatch notices in a minute if I'm not more sophisticated with this. So what we're doing here, as Lisa mentioned earlier, is that we're contextualizing. You have our fridge data coming in off the left-hand side. It's an example of the streaming live event data we're getting from GCP. We're adding the asset data. Really important elements. When was this in service? Does it have a warranty? Right? What should we be doing? So what I'm going to show you here is all of the logic that sits behind the scenes of the states that you just saw. Now, a little bit of an eye chart. Again, happy to go over this with you in more detail, either after the session, or I'm going to encourage you to go to either the GCP IoT or the Salesforce booths downstairs. I'd love to dig into this stuff. But bottom line is, you can, without having to program, get access to very sophisticated functionality. We can go back and say, what are our targets? How long do you want to wait? One of the keys here is that when I had a fault, I'm going to check for a warranty. And the reason why I do that is because I'm going to behave different depending on the contextual information contained within Salesforce. If the customer has a warranty, I open a case, I dispatch. They're automatically entitled to service rights. If they don't have a warranty, we open an opportunity to sell them a warranty or perhaps sell them their replacement parts. Right? If they're in a marketing campaign, perhaps we're going to alter the marketing. One event will change the entire relationship a customer can have with the brand across multiple functions. So I do want to highlight that as one of the key things that we bring to the table. What does a case look like? In this case, this is the asset. Salesforce IoT requested a response independent. You can start automating these key business processes and determining what your ideal customer experience should be. And ultimately, we're able to see IoT information directly inside CRM or Salesforce. Now, if you go and you look at the entire architecture, why are you all here? Why are we here? The physical things in IoT have a digital voice. That digital voice is what your customers want to tell you. Use the data to listen to the customers, use GCP to process and gain insight, to be able to manage the identity, use Salesforce to be able to connect to your customer directly. That being said, I believe we've resolved our problem. Oh, there it is. So we're back to normal. I think because I threw it back in the fridge, but if you guys want to manually change this, you're absolutely welcome to. And again, as we think about the possibilities of the use case, this is where I get very excited. The key takeaway here is that IoT architecture, improving end-to-end, is something that's well-traveled. We know the different pieces. We know the hardware. We know the services, the cloud services. We know what different elements can be brought together, and the creativity of the use case is really where things come together. And actually, what I do want to mention is one of the highlights that Roberto started off our discussion with is around the power of the ecosystem. Obviously, you're seeing GCP and Salesforce together here, but I do want to highlight the services component. We did a lot of our use case prototyping, and in fact, a lot of the work that was done here on the demo was with a partner, service partner of ours, Dave Stanton of Appear, who's in the front row, and I do want to give you a shout out and thank you for all the input, especially things like the warranty, right? How do you manage that separately? What would you do different in terms of the logic, right? This is where having the experience of what the customers are really looking for helps bring real business value. The other thing I do want to highlight, if we go back to the slides. All right. Salesforce and Google and Salesforce. We have a joint customer that is using our IoT to provide proactive service. Roush Cleantech is a great example of the business value you can bring to the table. What Roush Cleantech is doing is they're monitoring fleet for service, proactively making sure that service vehicles, school buses, are on the road and that they're working assets. So if you think about the customer experience that sits behind the business case, I want to make sure that a school bus or a fleet vehicle is on the road and working. And the way we're going to do this, then we're going to get check engine lights, we're going to get engine telemetry. But more than that, we're going to be able to analyze this for proactive service. How do I take that vehicle and bring it in for service before there's actually a problem? Quick example here of what they're doing. And if you start, you can see how architecturally we've brought a lot of these different pieces together and continue to add great use cases, geofence monitoring. How do I go ahead and get this to the nearest service depot, not just a service depot? How do I have proactive diagnostics around fuel systems, predictive service, again, keeping these things working? So with that, what I'd like to do is introduce Colin Mara, who will bring us home.
Thanks, Aubrey. I'm here to kind of wrap things up or help. If there's one thing you can leave with today from this session, would be that the togetherness between Google and Salesforce will really complement each other. We talked about how from the physical end device, connecting that to Google Cloud IoT core, getting that data, being able to manage those devices securely, push out updates, manage the users that are involved, and then get it into the traditional Google product sets, GCP product sets for machine learning, BigQuery, all those types of things. And then where you really need to have the action take place in your business systems. And CRM, the leading player out there is Salesforce. Get that data into Salesforce where actions can really take place and you can really enhance your experience, your customer's experience together. So the idea here is you get best-of-breed products here between Google, world-class Google, Salesforce together will help you streamline this process, your journey, your IoT journey, make it easier for you to really see the value and get the benefits from that. Make a slide. Slide? Oh, do I have to do it here? I'm sorry, I thought he was doing the slide. All right. So before we wrap up here, one of the things that I want you all to know about what you can do after this. You've seen a little bit of the demo. You can attend. There's a few more IoT breakout sessions that are going on at the show. Check out the IoT showcase on the show floor at Moscone South. There's an IoT solutions section that Google has. They're showing some other virtual demos that are going on. You can get a free ice cream over at the Maps. We're pulling in a number of the different Google products and capabilities within IoT, and you'll be able to see that on display, ask questions, etc. There's also the Salesforce booth, which will have a version of this, and you can kick around the refrigerator and play around it, ask questions, go a little bit deeper on the technology if you're interested in that. And if you need to get in contact with, we've got a site you can go down to visit, as well as you've got any kind of potential opportunity here that you want to talk a little bit further, you can reach out to me, colinmara@google.com. I'm available to engage and kind of quarterback the GCP team and the Salesforce team together to help you kind of uncover your requirements and needs and guide you through that journey.